okay, it's just interesting that some people tune into it and some people don't.
Yeah.
And which actually is a very, very nice lead into Guardians of the Galaxy, which is, as a series, has always taken the music and cassettes and all that kind of retro stuff very seriously.
Exactly. So if you remember the very beginning of the...
Good lead-in, I thought.
That was really well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Spoiled rather by the fact that you just flagged it up, but there we go.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's worth if something goes well...
It's worth
I might screw up a joke, but I'm just
victory.
cueing a nice thing
Right.
here. Anyway.
So if you remember the first Guardians of the Galaxy opens, with Chris Pratt doing that. It's almost like a dance number, isn't it? And then he grabs a sort of weird thing and sings into it. And, and that's the whole, then there's the whole thing about the Walkman and why the music, is constantly playing in his head. And there was also a weird crossover, wasn't there? Because when The Martian happened, there was the whole thing about The Martian that the only thing he's got is the disco playlist that he's stuck behind. So there was a kind of...
Rodney's Red Planet.
Rodney's Red Planet, which is a joke I wish that I had made, but I didn't. Who was it? Was it you?
It was genuinely me.
It was genuinely you. You genuinely came up with that joke. So I remember when I first saw Guardians of the Galaxy, the thing that I really loved about it was it was a breath of fresh air. It was a hoot. It was also a hit, obviously spawned sequels. This declares itself to be, the third and, closing installment of the Guardians of the Galaxy. This is returning director James Gunn. The team are back. They're getting used to life on Nowhere. Dave Bautista is Drax the Destroyer, who, of course, is actually a sweetheart. Karen Gillan is Nebula, proving that there really is life after Doctor Who. Pom Klementieff, I'm never sure about that pronunciation. I'm terrible. Is the empathic Mantis. Vin Diesel is Groot, who only ever says, I am Groot, and actually he's a tree anyway. So when I say Vin Diesel is Groot, Bradley Cooper is Rocket, the genetically engineered raccoon, because obviously there's a lot of make-up stuff. And then Pratt is back as Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, who is still in love with Zoe Saldana's Gamora, who died and then came back as a different version of herself who doesn't love or remember him in the way that he does her. Here's a clip.
I miss you so much. And maybe if you open yourself up to it, there's a possibility.
I don't think so, Quinn.
Quill.
I don't think so.
Well, what I'm trying to say is...
Peter, you know this is an open line, right?
What?
We're listening to everything you're saying.
And it is painful.
And you're just telling me now?
We were hoping it would stop on its own.
But I switched it over to private.
What color button did you push?
Blue! For the blue suit!
Oh, no.
Blue was the open line for everyone.
Orange is for blue.
What?
Black is for orange. Yellow is for green. Green is for red. And red is for yellow.
No, yellow is for yellow. Green is for red, red is for green.
I don't think so.
Try it then.
Hello! You were right.
That's funny.
Yeah, exactly. And there is a lot of that. There's a lot of the funny wisecracking between them. And there's a lot of the, the well-chosen needle drop retro hit jukebox stuff. What there also is, which if people know about the film, they'll know this, but because I didn't read anything about it beforehand, is there is also a lot more darkness. So this time, Rocket becomes the central character. He's wounded in an attack by Will Poulter's Warlock, and they then try to make him better. And by trying to make him better, they find out that he has a kill switch built into him, because obviously he's genetically modified, and his backstory has always been somewhat hidden. And the rest of the film then shifts between flashbacks to his backstory, how he became Rocket, and the mission to find and disarm the kill switch, which is in him. Now, as I said, previous installments, funny, action-packed. It has that, but it also has this weirdly melancholic and often very dark stuff about the animal experiments. I mean, you remember things like the Plague Dogs and Richard Adams, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So there is something genuinely affecting, and believe me, no one was more surprised by this than I was, affecting and distressing about the scenes in which the character who becomes Rocket is one of a number of creatures who are being experimented on to accelerate their evolution in order to create a new utopian society, obviously in a way which is very twisted in an Island of Dr. Moreau. And during that stuff, I became very affected by it. I mean, to the point that actually at one point I teared up, and I'm sure I'm not the only person, because the way in which the animation of that is done is very convincing. And the problem with it is that then when you have the other stuff, it kind of feels to me like it's almost two different movies. So I think this is 2.5 hours long. It is overlong and it is baggy. There is a great 89-minute movie in there, which is basically the Rocket backstory, which is really, oddly kind of oddly touching in a way which I hadn't expected it to be. Then when you get back to, the starship fighty, runny, jumpy, smashy, crashy, boom, all that stuff, not so interested. And I did kind of find that towards the inevitable big climax, it sort of lost some of its oomph. But there is in the middle of that, and obviously this is partly a kind of personal thing, but in the middle of all of this, there is a film about vivisection and animal experimentation, which even in the context of it being a Guardians of the Galaxy fantasy about the creation of Rocket, is oddly poignant and just reminded me that science fiction has a way sometimes of dealing with issues that just catch you completely off guard. So I was sort of surprised. I mean, it was an evening screening that I went to, and it was full because I think it was the multimedia screening. It did seem to be playing very well with the audience. The audience gave a big round of applause at the end. So clearly, fans of the series are getting what they need out of it. But do be warned, there be beasts and darkness in here, and I actually think that's for the good.
And it's Volume 3.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3. Although when I saw it, it was Volume 11, mate.
And is that...
This is Bachman Turner Overdrive. Sorry.
Is that the end? Or is there...
Well, we know that at least the characters can reappear in other ways, but the Guardians of the Galaxy, that is a self-contained trilogy.
Okay, that's done. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.